what made you make that transition over to Heatmaps?
I short answer is I think that's where I think the industry is going. Is there's a lot of talk about the diversity of ads. And so like it kind of dovetails into having heat map and creative OS, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit. But um, having watched billions of dollars pump through the system, having had my hand on, nine figures worth of ad spend myself, um, I saw that there's diminishing returns on just focusing on ads, but every time you see a brand that is just as intense and intentional about how the landing experience is on their website, um, then they have kind of like a much higher ceiling on the returns that they're going to gain. And so it feels like a really wide open market. There's a bunch of incumbent players. I keep saying they kind of feel asleep at the wheel a little bit. And so it's time for it to be disrupted. So I just see a lot of blue ocean there. And then there's kind of like founder market fit. And Dylan Ander, our founder, is like a leading CRO. He understands what we needed to build. And I've seen a lot of times where founders are incredibly intelligent, but they're not domain experts, except for they will be, in 3 years after building their startup, they become domain experts, not on day zero of the startup
Mhm.
existing. And so I thought that was a bit of a cheat code as well. And I think there's also like just a go-to-market advantage in terms of branding and stuff that we are in the process of creating that's going to be really strong over time. So kind of TLDR version is I think the market is ready and ripe. I think the data that I have seen supports that this is something that must be done to help entrepreneurs and businesses grow. Given CPMs will never go down unless you find a new channel, which again, these things happen every 5 years. You find a new meaningful channel. So in the interim, what do you do? And there's founder market fit. And so those things matter a lot. And just everyone's cool. Like besides all of that, like if I'm being very technical and calculated, I vibed with everyone really hard that works at the company.
Awesome. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it seems like there's a lot going on with it, and I'd love to dive into heat maps and Creative OS
Yeah.
because we're as an agency using Creative OS. Um, but before we do, just to make sure we're on the same page,
Yeah.
I have a couple of definition questions. First of
Sure.
all, are you acronym CRO, CVO? Are you agnostic to that? Do you just focus on what happens with it?
Like conversion rate optimization. Is that what you're asking? So
Yeah,
obviously
versus
that's kind of
conversion
the
value.
so I conversion value. So we kind of look at ourselves as like we're a revenue analytics platform.
Mhm.
And so we're trying to just do essentially rev ops, right? We want to help you optimize revenue to grow
Mhm.
your business. And so CVO would kind of be the where I would lean. CRO is obviously like the predominant thing, but I would rather help people figure out how to convert better, higher value customers rather than just get a higher conversion rate. Because if I get you a higher conversion rate and it's not your payback period is shit, your LTV is low, and your AOV is low, like it's going to tank your business. So like, oh, okay, we bumped your conversion rate 3x, but we also tanked your profitability by 70%. Like, that's not a good outcome. And so
Mhm.
I think conversion rate optimization, it's a little bit of a sticky subject because it's what the industry is known as. And it's industry standard, but it's not actually what the practice does predominantly. It's more about unlocking value inside of your customer base and then making sure the new prospects are able to unlock at the same value of those customers that you think are high value. So we think about it like revenue intelligence. But I would say CVO, if I'm answering the question directly, is where I would lean, like conversion value optimization.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And if we had to talk about just from a very high level heat
Yeah.
maps, and let's just say, heat maps versus let's Microsoft Clarity or Hotjar, right?
Yeah.
Those are, two very well known ones. Um, for someone that may not specialize in CRO, how does heat map set itself apart from a free tool like Microsoft Clarity?
Yeah, great question. What Dylan says always to us is clicks ain't cash. And so
Mm,
those things measure the clicks that are happening on your website. You don't actually understand underneath that what's driving bottom line impact. So you have to infer and do correlation analysis between what's going on in your Shopify store and your Google Analytics, et cetera, with what you're seeing in Clarity or Hotjar specifically. So what we do is we give you down to the pixel what all of the clicks mean in terms of bottom line revenue generation. And then what each click, we have two stats that we've come up with, which are revenue per session and revenue per click. And
Mm-hmm.
we're giving you those stats to understand what's actually a valuable action or a valuable section. You know, if you want to start doing buckets, what buckets on your website are super valuable. So like we said we're the first revenue first heat map tool in the
Mm-hmm.
world that helps you, allows you to focus in on that. What I would say is I have a lot of clients that have switched over, and when I do like a light audit for them, where I just go through their page and look at their data, like, well, look, this section that you have down here, you know, 4 or 5 buckets down is driving the most revenue, and it's in between buttons. So maybe just A/B test, or excuse me, split test, having it brought up to the second
Mm-hmm.
or third bucket total, and you'll see kind of their face light up. They didn't have any sense of that information. They were on Hotjar or Clarity, which are both great tools. Like I'm not, there's no argument from me there. Um, it's just we want to get to the actual bedrock of your business, which is what's actually converting. So that's what we do
Yeah.
that's different.
And help me wrap my mind around that a little bit. Like, let's say there's a button on the homepage,
Yeah.
and I saw on your website, you know, you could hover over the button and it would show you revenue attributed to the click on that button,
Yeah.
right? As a user, how if someone clicked that button and then ended up going to another page and then clicked a button and made a purchase,
Mm-hmm.
is there overlap or opportunity to not double attribute's not the right term, but I guess the more direct way I'm trying to ask is like, how do you attribute revenue
Mm-hmm.
to a specific action
Yeah.
outside of like add to cart or purchase?
Yeah, it's a great question. So everything comes back down to like what in the end is that customer who has clicked on that also finishing a purchase. So
Mm,
it is about essentially the customer journey. What we're doing is saying,
mhm,
hey, look, the click that was on this button still led to a customer ending their journey in a purchase. What we have is
mhm,
screen recording. So if you go and look at a screen recording, it will say, hey, this customer, their checkout value was $147, and you can go and watch what they did. So you can say, okay, now I can synthesize the two things. So I'm going to watch all of my customers who have an AOV of say above $120 to see what their purchase journey was. Obviously, we're young tools, so we're going to build into a lot of those things so you don't have to do them as manually. But what I would say to answer your question again directly in a TLDR is it's looking at the journey and attributing the clicks that led to the journey at the end, like led to the end of the sale, and giving you a sense of that mainly. So for LPs and PDPs, this is really powerful for, for collections pages, also super powerful to understand which things you should move up in the taxonomy of the page. But yeah, that's the long and short of it.
no, I love that. And, you know, I think as someone gets experience in a specific role, you know, Facebook ads, CRO, CVO, whatever it may be, right? They can start to gain understanding of priorities as well. Like what is important, what is urgent.
Yeah.
If someone doesn't have that and they're using a tool like Heatmaps and you have a list of opportunities that you see, do you have a mindset that you go about? And I realize every use case is going to be different. Do you have a
Mhm.
mindset you go about, or does the tool provide any sort of guidance on how to prioritize certain opportunities?
We will have that, like that's going to be automated coming out in the next few months. So it's a
Okay.
great question, great plug for kind of the AI tooling that we're going to have that will allow for that. We're also launching an education center where you can go and learn about that if you want to get a little bit deeper. If I had to give you one, essentially, there are kind of 4 core things. The top one is your navigation. So I'm always looking at what's the place that gets the most amount of traffic and consistent traffic. And it's always going to be the top of your page and your navigation. So 100% of people will see it. 80% of people generally interact with it on a page. So you want to actually, we have a newsletter going out. I know this will be released after the newsletter goes out, but we have a newsletter going out on Friday that literally talks about this. So you gain, there's like 5-10% worth of your revenue that comes just strictly from the interactions that are happening with the navigation. So it's getting the hierarchy of the navigation set up properly. Like if you're a brand that focuses on deals, making sure that everyone, the first thing on there is like daily deal, right? If you're one that focuses on different narratives, right? Are you trying to lose weight? Are you trying to, get better skin? Having those things ranked based on which narrative works best for your customers. Um, that's the first thing. Obviously, like making sure that your collections pages are optimized for revenue per session, revenue per click. Because a lot of times what you'll find is when you go and look at these things, the second best performing item is the last thing on the page, or
Mm,
you see that their pagination, so which is like when someone is clicking between pages, really needs to be extended. So they only show 25 items, and that button is being clicked out of, say, total traffic is, say, 10,000 for the month, just as a number. That second page button is being clicked 4,000 times. So 40% of your customers want to see more stuff. Why not just extend that number from 25 to 50? And then you've
mm,
essentially kept people in the flow. You're not getting this loss or this decay of customer usage, and you keep them in the flow and keep the purchase conversion velocity going. So we want to just keep people moving as quickly as they possibly can to get to the end of the cycle. Every time you ask them to click something that isn't leading to the purchase, you're degrading your chances of actually getting to a purchase. So like we want to just keep the friction on that journey as low as possible. So it's getting the pagination right. I think like those are the other ones. FAQs are also a big one where there's a lot of information in there that
hmm
people aren't optimizing. So a lot of times if you have a newer thing, so like say mushroom coffee, and you people are asking what the effects of it are going to be, like having that a little bit higher on the page, making sure you optimize for the questions that are getting more interaction rather than like the things that you think you need to have. I had one brand recently where their third thing down was will I trip balls? And it was mushroom coffee. That's why I'm using the example. And it's the thing that people interacted most with. It's also very cheeky. It's fun. It feels on brand. It feels very human. That should be the first thing in their FAQ, right? And that FAQ is getting a lot of interaction. That should be brought up maybe one or two buckets because people are interested in knowing more information because this is something that they maybe haven't had before. This isn't like, hey, I'm going to go get a bag of blue bottle coffee. It's like, okay, it's just expensive coffee grinds. This is a new way to consume something that I haven't before that feels a little antithetical to what I was taught. So I need some more information. Okay, I want to bring that above, I want to bring that up a couple buckets, and then also make sure that the stuff that I'm sharing is the stuff that I'm sharing that's valuable is optimized in there so that people get to it quicker, so they can make a decision more quickly.
Yeah, I saw that tweet that you put up
Yeah,
recently with that exact FAQ, and I
yeah,
love that because I feel like a lot of times FAQ gets just turned into an SEO drop bucket
yep,
of just keyword stuffing. So it was
100%.
very neat to see people actually putting emojis and like provocative questions that people are actually thinking into the FAQ that way.
100%. I mean, it also sets you apart, right? Because, like you said, just predominantly an FAQ is like such a forgotten section, and it's an opportunity for you to show your personality in a way that you can't in some other places. Because maybe if you have ingredients that you just have to get out there, you have to put those in. There's no way you can have a fun conversation about them. But the FAQ is more just, I'm going to answer the questions that we're getting consistently. Let's have a fun time, express the tone of the brand. And I always say, if someone's getting to your FAQ and asking, they're a more serious customer anyway.
Hmm
So you have to make sure that you're still doing selling at that point. So there's an opportunity to get them more into the brand story, also make them feel like you're a part of their story, etc. It's a lot of like nuance that goes into that, but a lot of people don't focus on those things. So like my big one is there's kind of the core stuff you can optimize: PDPs, homepage, collections pages, etc. But also there's a few places where you can stack really nice incremental gains that you won't have to change that often. That will just continuously, as the kids say, print money for you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I love that with the FAQ opportunity because I imagine that that can help out with where my next question is going, which is incorporating website data or things from Heatmaps into things like your ad creative or your messaging,
yeah,
or combining the two to learn from each other.
yeah,
I'm sure you could see certain clicks or actions on questions in the FAQ to understand
100%.
which ones people are truly engaging with. from
100%.
a marketing or from a paid ad agency perspective, one thing that we've pushed for with clients in the past, especially ones that don't do any sort of website work, is we're testing out messaging strategies, rational and emotional motivators. You could look at adopting some of these into your copy on your website, right? But let's talk about just that relationship as a whole, because you're really in depth on both sides, Creative OS and Heatmaps. What does that connection or opportunity look like from both sides?
Yeah, it's a fantastic call out. It's probably the thing that I see the like if you say, Chase, what do the best brands do? They understand the symbiotic relationship between their ad creative and the landing experience that the customer goes onto. So there's this framework by this guy named Darius Contractor, which is called like the psych framework. And
Mm-hmm.
essentially there's like this fuel that a customer comes in with. So if they come through an ad, say they're coming at like an 80, they want to believe that this product is for them, but they're maybe just a tad skeptical. You have the opportunity to convince them or degrade to the point where they're not going to consider you, and they're done with the purchase. And usually it leads to the other one. That's why 5% conversion rate people are very excited about, 7% they're excited about. There's not people saying, hey, I got a 97% conversion rate. It's the opposite. And so there's a lot of things that go into that. One is making sure that your creative is never so out of line, either with its value props or its visuals with your website, that it doesn't allow for people to understand what they're buying, who they're buying it from, and if they are the target customer. And so people will come back and say, well, hey, look, Athletic Greens has a really slick site, and then they have some like really raw UGC. Well, it's UGC. So there's not this expectation that the same things are going to align, but you can see in the UGC that people really like the product, and that, say, if they're holding the packaging looks pretty slick, right? So there's obviously right then and there is a kind of like, there's a sense that you're going to go into a more premium experience. And so you want to have a lot of alignment there. I think a lot of brands, what they do is they want to test ads. Okay, the way there's like a framework I use called a minimum scope. And so is something high minimum scope or low minimum scope? Like, what do I need to do to actually get it across the line? Ads are pretty low minimum scope. So what I call them, like, they're like speedboats. You get in them, they
Mm-hmm.
go fast, you can go places, whip around fast, but they don't have much gas or fuel in them, right? You got to keep replenishing them. And so low minimum scope to do it, but you just have to kind of replenish the gas all the time. There's not much charge. Landing pages or your websites take a little bit more of a lift to actually have meaningful changes. Unless you're using something like Shogun or Replo, you can move pretty quickly. But to have like meaningful changes, you have to do a lot of data analysis. You have to do a lot of different things to make something align. And so people don't test those as much. They still do. They do quite a bit. But they test ads and move through that more quickly. It's also sexier to kind of move through ads more quickly. Um, and they're very quick to abandon um, ad tests versus landing page tests. All that to say, the best thing you can do is make sure that you have a very rigorous way of looking at how you're going to make both things work together. And if you have, say, 3 different landing pages you're working with, bucket the kind of creatives that go within, like that go into the traffic sources for those landing pages. Because the worst thing you can do is have an ad and a landing experience that don't align with the expectations that the customer from that ad would have. Because they're going to come like, dude, what? This is not for me. This is not what I bought into when I was getting courted on the when I was getting courted. So by the way, I'll use this example for you. You've seen movie trailers for movies where like, dude, that movie is the movie. And you go to the movie and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, this is a horrible movie. The entire best parts of the movie were just in the trailer. Like it was only
Mm-hmm.
2 minutes and then the movie is terrible or it's not what I expected. So there's a movie from 2010, I think it was called The American with George Clooney. I love this movie. It's a very thoughtful, quiet film, but there's some action in it because it's like like assassin movie, but it's like an OG kind of 70s assassin movie. The 3 minutes of really hot action they put into the trailer, and it looks like a Bond movie.
Mm-hmm.
They sell it like a Bond movie. Everyone's excited because it's George Clooney in a Bond movie. Wow, we've been waiting for this. Opening weekend, 25 million bucks. Next weekend, $800,000. Like that kind of drop does not usually happen unless it's like, hey, it was this huge movie. It's like, okay, we go from 25 to like 12 or something. or 10. Why? Because the expectations and the reality were not aligned, right? And
Hmm.
so you want to make sure your movie trailers and the actual movie are the same or are kind of in the same narrative structure so that people can understand it. Because anxiety and frustration is when the gap is really wide in those two things. So that would be my kind of call to arms for everybody is just bucket your creatives based on what landing experience they're going to go into and make sure that when you're doing it, you think as the actual customer of, okay, is this going to degrade my trust and my desire to continue through this purchasing process with the brand when I come from the creative to that landing experience?
I love that. And, kind of staying on that topic of the experience from going from the ad to the website.
Yeah.
And I'll start by saying, every business is different, every vertical is different. So
Mhm.
there's going to be no kind of one size fits all with this. But is there any sort of consensus or, ideas that are working that you're seeing for specific types of landing pages, whether it be product pages, home pages, collection, advertorials, whatever it may be, that you feel brands should do more of? Or we could even say, landing pages brands should do less of because they just generally don't work.
So I'm still early in my CRO journey.
Hmm.
What I would say I have seen is rather than saying you should do one kind of landing page or another, what I would say is people need to focus on their fundamentals a little bit more and get some of those things I talked about at the top of this session in line a little bit better. Get your navigation set up more. Get your FAQs. Get your collections pages optimized for the products that are actually going to sell best, and then are leading to higher bundling or higher AOVs, etc. Because no amount of sexy landing pages is going to fix the underlying problem of like you haven't
Hmm.
actually optimized your site to extract the most revenue from the customers that you have brought from the traffic that you have brought to it. So that would be my number one. Like advertorials are always like they work really well. They give you a little more domain authority in the way that they're set up. But my more is like set the bedrock of your business and then keep working to make that bedrock stronger and stronger. I always say like raise the floor of what your expectations for your business are because you can always work towards what's the ceiling, but very few people actually make sure that the bedrock of their business is unflappable and the bottom can fall out at any time. If they say that landing page or that traffic, the ads aren't working anymore. Like, what are you going to do? And so if your site isn't ready to actually convert all the customers that are coming when say the bottom falls out on your ad account, what are you going to do then? You're going to optimize then for trap. Like you're going to be behind the eight ball. So I would rather have a solid foundation of conversion and value optimization now, and then be able to layer on the stuff that makes the upward bound much higher of the performance.
No, that makes sense. And from a whole landscape perspective, or from a whole um, niche, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
not using the right term, but the role of CVO, CRO, where do you see the landscape of that going in the next 3 to 5 years?
So I have I guess this is maybe not a hot take, but like I think your entire business's conversion rate or like CRO or CVO, like ads are CVO, CVO is CVO, like your post purchase is CVO. We're just trying to do conversion value optimization across
Mm,
the entire stack of things that we're doing. And so what I see the landscape doing is first, CVO or CRO will become the thing that people focused on most, say in about 18 months, right? So I was talking about ads and testing and all of this stuff 2 years before it started becoming a thing that people talked about predominantly.
mhm.
And that's just because I was servicing it. And so I saw the data behind it and people, the people who are at the forefront of that saw it too. They were talking about it. And then it just became something where it's like, okay, creative is the new targeting. Not that that is something that everyone believes, but that was something we were talking about 3 years ago. Same thing I think goes here, which is conversion value optimization is actually the unlock of your business. And I mean that in the sense that if you can get someone to go from a 75 AOV to a 95 AOV with the same CAC, what does that do to your business, your gross margins, your net profit, all of those things. How can you reinvest that into the business growing, right? If you had an extra $20, what would that do across, 50,000 sales in a month? That's game changing. And so, um, I think that's where I see the kind of conversation going. In terms of technology, I see the world working towards helping people build websites in a more comprehensive way without so much friction. So, like the same way we have automated a lot of ad creation or a lot of the process of ad creation, we still haven't done that in websites. And so, this is a technology thing, but the speed or rate of innovation, with AI being at the bedrock of that, is only going to increase. And so, with that velocity, I think it's more of a 3-year proposition to help people be able to take their websites to the next level rather than a 5-year proposition. Maybe 5 years to make it truly exceptional, but it's coming sooner than we think. So, essentially, what I'm saying, all my word salad is saying, is I think helping people optimize their websites, helping people create websites rather than having to go into Squarespace and start everything from like fresh is, hey, here's a prompt engine. What creative do you want? It's going to spit out of DALL-E or Midjourney. Okay, put that into my H1, right? I need an H1 image that's going to prompt. It's going to go straight into my Squarespace H1 with this kind of copy. Oh, this is not optimized properly based on our benchmarks for the industry that you're trying to go into. And essentially, you can have like a proper CRO optimized website without ever having to have a single human interaction. And it's not going to be the best thing because you haven't had customers pump through it. It's like a baseline. Same thing when you put a prompt into Chat GPT. It's like, okay, that's good, but it's not human yet. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the magic of having a human being layered on top of automation. So that's where I see it going. I think I'll be proved right on this one. It's really the question of what's the time horizon on it. Is it a 12-month, 18-month, and I'm asleep at the wheel, or is it say a 36-month to 60-month proposition? We'll see.
Yeah, I saw the AI update that Shopify came out with. The usability of it on the video looked great. I have not
Mhm.
seen execution of it,
Yeah.
but they were looking at similar things where it was like your store manager. Like you could
Yeah.
tell it to move a sale to your homepage
Yeah.
or change certain things on your homepage, and it would do that, which
Yeah.
is sounds great because from my understanding, and I've never, I mean, I've built websites. I've never had an agency for building websites, but from my understanding, there's not a lot of huge margin in it, but it's still a very expensive service, which can limit a lot of brands from kind of rapidly testing things.
Yeah. 100%. No, I think there's definitely a barrier to entry to being involved with this stuff. There's a lot of impact that these kind of agencies or service providers can have on a business, but the entry point for brands is steeper than maybe some other services are.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I feel like we've chatted about a lot of good things today. If you had to summarize everything that we've discussed into a marketing mindset, what mindset should marketers or business owners have when it comes to CVO or a tool like Heatmaps?
Um, Insights are great, action is greater. And so I think a lot of people either skew on one side or the other, and very few people do a great job of kind of sitting in the middle where they're like action, 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 and they don't analyze enough of what's happening in a deep enough way to understand their customers at a core level. So, they can tell you about their product, but they can't actually tell you about their customers. And so
Mm,
that's the big one I would kind of call as a call to arms there. On the other side, they are analyzing too much and not taking enough action because they just get kind of obsessed with the math around what their customers need, want, etc. And so I think there's a healthy balance that needs to be struck between being able to get people to watch your movie trailer, go to the movie, and then buy and tell their friends about it. And that comes from action being taken from analysis. And so when you're using a tool like Heatmap, for instance, or heatmap.com, um, you're going to want to go in there looking for specific insights. You're going to uncover some stuff that you didn't understand even existed, or that you weren't ready to actually take any action on. Build a structure with which you're going to start changing those things so that you can measure the data, and then go see how your customers or prospective customers respond. So it's just make sure you do enough analysis on the test that you're running to actually understand what the signal means, so that then you can make meaningful iterations and tests that move the needle and raise the floor of your business.
Awesome. And for anyone listening that's at the stage of figuring out what they'd like to do in the marketing industry, what marketing role or roles do you think will have the highest demand opportunity in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think product designers, great product designers, and I'm getting a little in tech, thinking about tech a little bit here, but
Like like packaging design or like actual product
no,
design?
product design. So I'm thinking I'm going to go tech. I'll go ecom right now as well.
Mhm.
So, um, in technology, a great product designer who understands customer, understands go to market, understands like the technical side of shipping a product are just gold. Like if you
Mm.
want to make money and you want to be safe, like become an epic product designer, and you will never want for work. I've found like three ever.
Mhm.
Um, in terms of e-commerce, I think the best thing you can do is, rather than thinking about roles, is thinking about proficiencies. And so I started off as a filmmaker in my life. So I'm a storyteller. What I forced myself to learn was math,
Mm.
right? Got to go learn how to do math, got to learn how to mess around in Excel, got to learn how to write SQL queries. That helped me because I could go get to the, baseline level of everyone who's in there. What they don't have is they don't have my storytelling ability, right? So now I have a
Mhm.
cheat code. So if you're a creative, go learn data. If you're a data nerd, go learn creative. And so my kind of call to arms is like, instead of thinking about like what role is right for me, you'll find different roles. You got to test. You got to test what's right for you. What you will find though is having a suite of T-shaped proficiencies will allow you to unlock roles that you might not have, or accelerate faster because other people in your same tranche of career choices don't have those same proficiencies, so they can't speak to both sides. So like the best creatives that I know are able to speak business language and back into the data that will support their creative. Vice
Mhm.
versa, the best data scientists, et cetera, that I know, or people that are focused on data in the engineering sphere, understand what's going to happen with the customers on a creative level when they interact, say, a certain feature. And so they can say, like, okay, we know the data on this. What's the UX need to look like to actually have a great interaction so that we can pop this engagement number and provide more value to the customers, but also ensure that kind of like downstream our revenue looks good because they're having a good experience. So not the exact answer I think you were looking for, but mine is more around build proficiencies, because that will kind of unlock a lot more than trying to, become the best at one job. There are a lot of jobs. Like I can do
Yeah, no,
product now. I can do product. I can do growth marketing. I can do brand marketing. I can do sales. I can do customer service and success. I run all of those things at our company.
mhm.
I do growth product. You know what I mean? And so it's all just trying to unlock new proficiencies. Um, that allow you to be more valuable to a company and to yourself when you try to build stuff for yourself as well.
Yeah, I feel like that learning of multiple skills is what can turn you into a unicorn hire,
Yeah.
right? I mean, just like the creative strategist, there's, I won't rant on this, but I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of creative teams and agencies can fail because it's normally creative strategy separate from performance, right? And there's just no communication with performance and creative. So you can't learn how your work is doing to optimize it that way, especially if you don't know how to read the data, and vice
100%.
versa, right?
100%.
So, and also with product design, there's a lot of times, you can be an ads manager for Facebook and think they were not thinking of the user at all
No.
when they didn't design like UTMs for the entire account. There's just one little drop in or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, awesome. And then tell us, where can listeners connect with you and learn more about your businesses,
Yeah.
many things you have going on?
100%. So Twitter, or LinkedIn are great. My Twitter is I am Chase Mohseni. I'm Chase Mohseni on LinkedIn as well. Hit me in the DMs, or follow or connect with me on either of those channels. Heatmap.com. I write a weekly newsletter. So it's just heatmap.com/newsletter. So you can get some information about CRO, what's going on in marketing, kind of our perspective on a lot of different things. There we write like a little mini case study. We're going to be unlocking a second one soon where we break down landing pages, etc. So that's pretty exciting. Yeah, those are the kind of places. Obviously, creativeos.io is a place you can go as well if you're looking for static ad templates. Pull it out of our platform. We have hundreds of clients already doing this. I know Colby, you are a client as well, so thanks for the support. And we've been really surprised and humbled by the success of that business. And like what I would tell people in general is, customers will tell you what they want. Listen. Don't fight it just because you think you know everything. You're not smarter than your customers. Every brand that thinks they're smarter than their customers ends up getting their ass kicked long term. So that's the thing we literally have done with this product since day one is just listen, 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 listen. And nothing bad. Even when we always joke around that like this business is succeeding sometimes despite us rather than because of us, because some people fuck something up or we won't think about it, something in the right way. And just the customers keep coming, keep having great experiences. We keep getting amazing messages from everybody about how we've helped them kind of cut the time down and have the quality of their creative jump up because of what we're doing. And it's just it's not a complicated solution. It's more like quality is really the key to everything. So we don't ship anything that isn't truly premium. So those are the two places. But yeah, follow Heatmap on Twitter, follow Creative Us on Twitter, and I really appreciate you having me on, Colby.
Yeah, Chase, thanks for coming on. It was a great episode today.
Yeah, thank you.